Good morning, ladies, gentlemen, peoples of all ages, right? So, pardon the dog. He's an Alaskan Malamute, very opinionated, loves his people, loves to tell you what's going on in the world. So, we will have background noise. So, I was at the grocery store the other day with my wife, and it was a pretty easy day at the grocery store. Now, they didn't have everything that they normally have, but there was no long lines. There wasn't anything, crazy. It was just like a normal day. We got our stuff that we could get, went right into a checkout lane, and I had made the comment to my wife and the lady working the register. She was, I don't know, teenager, whatever. And I had made the comment, I wonder if China unleashed this thing that's going around the planet, hypothetically, and just so everybody else would start wearing masks like the Chinese do, because they were finally frustrated enough for people making fun of Chinese for wearing masks all the time. Could it be? I'm just kidding. A little bit of levity this morning. It's April 6th, 7:30 in the morning. So, but that was a conversation I had with my wife and the lady working the register. Kind of an interesting thought though, right? Like, what if it's not just this natural thing that occurred? What if it's not bioengineered weapon that got out for any ill intent other than to just make everybody wear masks and stop making fun of the Chinese? Now, I don't know if making fun of the Chinese for wearing masks is a very popular thing. Sometimes I joke about it, but I think a lot of people have stopped joking about it because they realize there are reasons for wearing a mask. And if you live in China, where it's polluted 24/7, there are reasons to wear a mask. But, all joking aside, I know, it's a bad joke. It's early in the morning. I'm gonna grab some coffee. So, all joking aside. So, what if you had the world's greatest empire, and you wanted to test them? So you're an emerging world power, and there's no way you could outright compete with the existing world power. And in this illustration, the existing world power is the USA. We are an empire, whether we like to think about it or not. We are the world's reserve currency for now. That'll be a later video. We are the world's premier military power for now. Economically, we are the largest economy on the planet. I think it's like, I forget what our GDP is. It's something like 2 trillion a year or something like that. So, but we're no longer the manufacturing empire. No. That was ceded to China in the 80s and 90s. 80s, I think, is when it started. 90s is when it was really cemented as China was going to be the manufacturing center of the world. I mean, they manufacture everything. Just about everything. Everything that matters. So, let's say you're China, and you can't just come out and compete with the USA on a level footing and win, right? Yeah, sure, China's got a standing 1 million man army, and they've got like 1.7 or more billion people in the country. That's a lot of people. I think right now the USA has 330 million. So, they outnumber us, let's just say conservatively 5-1. It's math. I'm not going to sit here and crunch the numbers this early in the morning, but conservatively, let's say it's 5-1. All right? So, what if you wanted to test them and you couldn't do it overtly, right? Which you couldn't just come out and say, hey, USA, we're coming at you, and here's how we're going to do it. So, you know that you have 5-1 odds, right? You could afford to lose some people. What if you just had this disease, this virus, and you wanted to see the world's response, but primarily the USA's response, and what happens? So you unleash it in your country, but you don't tell anybody that you're having a problem until a significant portion of your society is infected. But you keep it localized, so a local citizenry is infected. And you know that in this local group of people, they travel in and out of the country on a regular basis for work, for leisure, family, whatever. So your virus that people are now infected with, highly contagious, but it doesn't kill enough people where the World Health Organization has got to lock you down, or lock any of the other countries down. So you sit on it. You sit on the fact that your people are infected until the right time. Now, what do I mean by the right time? So you build up this critical mass of people that are infected, and you allow them to travel. And you surmise that at a given time, enough of your people will have moved and traveled outside of this location to infect a significant portion of the world. Then you lock the city down. You shut down all manufacturing. And you see what happens. Kind of like a war game, right? So countries all around the world, war game on a constant basis. They just have people in a room thinking stuff up, then they have other people in another room that weren't part of the original plan, evaluating it and thinking up more stuff, right? Moves and counter moves. So you gauge the world's response to this virus. And you see, you're only interested in one country. You see what they do. So the USA did not necessarily go full draconian to stop the spread of this virus. Because locking down 330 million Americans is not an easy thing to do. We're not like the Chinese, obviously. We're taller, for one. Just kidding. But we have this thing where we are a relatively free society. We do not like being told what we can and cannot do, especially by government. No, we fight wars over that. But we also realize that maybe there's a legitimate reason we should be a little concerned. 3% mortality rate in the US with this particular virus is high, but it's not as high as MERS or SARS or, God forbid, Ebola. So now you're China, you're sitting back and you're gauging the USA's response. And you are evaluating their level of preparedness. And the level of preparedness that you're seeing, the USA is not prepared, number one, to have enough equipment on hand to take care of people. They're triaging. Number two, their supply lines are stretched all over the planet. Sorry, our supply lines are stretched all over the planet. India makes a lot of pharmaceutical drugs for the USA. Now India is not exporting some of the drugs that have shown to be effective to treat this particular issue. So there's also this thing where a lot of people are up in arms about this captain of the USS Teddy Roosevelt aircraft carrier. Apparently he sent an email over an unsecured line to a few people. And this email was between him and his superiors. Not the strike group commander on board the aircraft, who has authority over the whole strike group, but to people above him. Big no-no. Big no-no. Trust me, I've sent a few emails in my day. Big no-no. So you've effectively, with this captain, there's a outbreak of this particular disease on the aircraft carrier, and he's pleading with his superiors to disembark 90% of the sailors on this aircraft carrier. Only keep enough to maintain the critical nuclear reactor, munitions, warfighting equipment, right? Seems logical. But you have now just taken out an entire aircraft carrier and you never even fired a shot. Yep. So now while that ship is getting deep cleaned and those sailors are being treated, that is an entire aircraft carrier strike group that no longer has an operating aircraft carrier. So the US military, from the Chinese perspective, can effectively be taken out with a virus. Not a computer virus, a virus that infects humans at a 3% mortality rate. So the military, this one particular captain, is freaking out over a 3% mortality rate. Interesting. So, is the USA capable of fighting if they have the chances of losing 3% of their people? And China, they're willing to sacrifice some people. We know that. In the Korean War, they just sent wave after wave after wave of people to get mowed down. They have no qualms about losing people. But this captain freaks out about 3%. And it could be higher, right? It could be higher. So from China's perspective, you realize that the USA, if they were to actually go up against a formidable standing opponent, you've got a shot at taking them out. They don't manufacture everything that they need. They don't have necessarily the will to lose people to engage or accomplish an objective. And you can take out multiple ships by having a certain percentage of the crew inoculated, that's not the right word, infected with this disease. But that's interesting in and of itself. The other thing that's interesting is that I read a news article about Canada. And a lot of people are probably giving Canada a lot of crap right now because at first they said, oh, don't worry, it's no big deal, we're going to keep our borders open. While President Trump is saying, nope, no more incoming travel from infected countries. Not going to do it, which I think was the right move. I think that was the right move. We're ultimately going to have fewer fatalities because of it. But because Canada didn't do that, and they kept their country open for business, they're now having their country locked down. They went from everything's fine, don't worry, sunshine and rainbows and unicorns, to, oh my God, we have an issue. Nobody goes anywhere, everybody stay home. And the article I read was talking about a nursing home. And I think they were using this nursing home as an example. But they said if you're in a nursing home and you are elderly, which, let's face it, a lot of nursing homes are full of elderly people that can't take care of themselves and they have underlying conditions, so they're in a very susceptible age group. The story I read said that you're not going to be transported to the hospital. You were going to be made comfortable while you dealt with this coronavirus, while you dealt with. So the only time you're kept comfortable while dealing with a medical condition is if that medical condition will ultimately kill you and you don't want people to suffer. So is Canada really going to let people in nursing homes just pass away while being kept comfortable? Is it essentially now nursing homes are hospice centers? Now, further on down in the news thing, it said, that's just not true. Nobody gave instructions to the nursing home to do that. It's just maybe a one-off. Well, now other people are speaking up that they said, no, we have people that we know, family members that are in separate nursing homes, that we've been told that's what's going to happen. There's this other interesting thing where there's aging populations in developed countries, and those aging populations don't necessarily contribute to the GDP. They are a drain on resources. We've been talking in the US openly that the Social Security system is insolvent. It's just paying too much money out to people for too long. People are living longer. Well, if you can't raise taxes because people are going to get fed up about how much taxes they're paying, how do you limit and keep the Social Security system solvent? Reduce the amount of people drawing from the system. And how do you do that? Kill off the older people. I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying it's an interesting thought. So, the world is going through an interesting shift. You have a developing empire, the Chinese, challenging covertly the existing empire, the USA. And we are an empire, make no doubt about it. We have military bases in 70 countries. I think the British were the last empire, and that the sun never set on the British Empire was a popular saying. Well, the sun never sets on the American Empire. Sure, we're a country with 50 states and a few territories, but we have military bases in 70 countries around the planet. We can strike anywhere in the world in a matter of hours. Hours. But I think there's going to be a lot of unintended consequences that the Chinese didn't necessarily take into account. And keep in mind, this is all hypothetical, right? This is just some guy in his garage in the morning drinking coffee talking about this. But one of the unintended consequences is President Trump, for better or worse, does not like to be shown up. And I think that's a good thing right now, because you're starting to see a movement to bring back manufacturing into this country, to not be reliant on China for all of its stuff. So we're going to diversify our supply lines. I'm thinking we're going to bring back a good portion of manufacturing to this country. I live in the Rust Belt. I live in Pennsylvania. And there was a lot of coal being produced in this country, in this area. There was a lot of steel manufacturing. The city that I grew up in, Bethlehem, people from Bethlehem say Bethlehem. That's how you can tell where we're really from. But we had Bethlehem Steel, Golden Gate Bridge, the New York skyline, steel for ships during World War II. That all came from the Bethlehem Steel. Not all of it, but a very, very substantial portion came from Bethlehem Steel. Their symbol is the actual I-beam. They patented the I-beam, if you didn't know that. That's how big they were. But if we're going to be bringing back manufacturing, that means China's not going to be manufacturing everything for us. So one of the unintended consequences is that manufacturing might that China had, where it was just sucking up everybody's currency and buying stuff with it, like gold, real estate, you're going to see a significant portion of that reduced, I think, in the coming years. The other thing, the second one, is that a lot of Americans used to make fun of people for being preppers or survivalists or whatever you want to call it. It's changed over the years, but right now it's being a prepper, and that is somebody who believes in being prepared for natural disasters, emergencies, things like that. I think all those non-prepper people, the preppy individuals of society that were just going around the rat race, spending money, making money, currency, spending it, living for the moment. You only live once, YOLO. They're now realizing life's not so comfy cozy as they thought. It can be turned on a dime like that. I think a lot more people are going to look seriously at becoming more prepared. So you're going to have a more prepared citizenry for natural disasters, emergencies, things like that. So what's actually happening is we're hardening ourselves. The other unintended consequence is a lot of gun stores, in my area at least, and I think around the country. I don't think this is just a local phenomenon, because I've seen reports from California and all over, California of all places, is that people may have been on the fence about buying a firearm. Oh, firearms are bad, we gotta get rid of the guns to protect the kids. Gun stores have been cleaned out. There's no inventory to buy, last I heard. So now you have a large percentage of Americans who didn't own firearms before. Now they own firearms and ammunition. So while China does not allow their citizens, or I don't even want to call them citizens, their people, their population, to own guns, because people who own guns are not so easy to control, the U.S. is now buying a crap load more guns and bullets. There was a Japanese general, I forget who he was, but he was asked whether it would be feasible to invade the United States mainland back before Japan invaded Pearl Harbor, or attacked Pearl Harbor. And he said, because he had traveled here, he had went to school here, and he said, if you attack the United States mainland, you will never get past the Rocky Mountains, because there will be a rifleman, or a rifle, behind every blade of grass. Now, granted, we have since come down from that amount of people that can shoot effectively. since the 1940s. But I don't think for long. I think what the unintended consequence, the third unintended consequence, is you have now bolstered the largest standing militia in the world. And you've made their numbers bigger. Because Americans, we like to fight amongst ourselves, right? We can never agree on anything. But the one thing we can agree with is we don't like people messing with us. We'll mess with each other all day long. It's like brothers, right? In the same family, constantly butting heads, wrestling, fighting with each other. But God forbid the neighbor boy starts picking on your smaller brother. That doesn't happen. At least not when I was growing up. Maybe it's changed. So, the U.S. military is the strongest military on the planet, followed closely by China and Russia. But there is no standing militia that is larger than the U.S. standing militia, privately owned firearms and ammunition. And if need be, we will answer the call and kick ass. All right, maybe not kick ass, but definitely make you think twice about what you're doing. Because if our boys, men and women in the military, God bless them, are sent overseas and somebody tries a sneak attack, it ain't going to be so easy. No. If it's on the East Coast, you're not getting past the Mississippi. No. You might take New York. They're a bunch of pansies anyway. You might take New Jersey. I doubt it. There's no way you're taking Pennsylvania easily. Virginia, West Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, the Carolinas, Florida? No. God, no. Now, if you attack the West Coast, if you get to the West Coast, you're not getting past the Rockies. Sorry. You'll take California. But you're not getting any further than that. And God forbid somebody tries to come up the south through Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, Florida, Nevada, Arizona. No. No. You will have a bad day. And to the north, through Canada? No. Bad idea. That's almost as bad as Napoleon trying to invade Russia during the winter. That did not work out so well. So, I think 3 unintended consequences. The U.S. is going to bring back manufacturing. A larger percentage of the U.S. population is going to be prepared. And you have now bolstered a standing militia that is millions of people. I think this is going to turn around, and economically, we may be hurting for a while, but I think we're going to be doing all right. Now, maybe we'll do a later video on how economically bad it could get, but for right now, I just wanted to leave you with those things. If you were a country that wanted to challenge the existing empire, and you couldn't do it overtly, and you wanted to war game to see what happens, I think this is a good war game. It's as real life as you could get without actually firing a shot. And I think the Chinese are taking a step back and going, we did not necessarily count on this. Those Americans, they're more feisty than we gave them credit for. They don't like to be locked down. They're willing to disregard, their governors, their state governors, and still travel around. America just don't give a crap. So, I wanted to leave you with that this morning. Stay ready, and if you're not ready, good luck getting ready right now. Don't worry. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. Talk to you later.